Death's bargain. I was the unwanted daughter in the Hart mansion, the real heiress that nobody loved. Forever the most expendable person in the family. Until one day, Death himself came knocking at my door. "You have 3 days to live," he said matter-of-factly. I blinked, then asked, "So, that means for these 3 days, no matter what I do, I won't die, right?" Death was speechless, his expression growing heavy as he reluctantly nodded. "Then I want to ask you for something," I said. "What?" Death replied. "Avada Kedavra." Death stared at me as I threw myself on the ground, rolling around and acting like a complete brat. He rubbed his temples in exasperation. "Just because the people around you don't love you? Is it really worth all this?" I sat up abruptly, my eyes blazing. "It's not that they don't love me, they want me dead." Death shook his head in disbelief, then offered a compromise. "Fine. I'll give you 18 days. If you can show me 18 instances of them hurting you, I'll grant your wish for Avada Kedavra." I shook my head. "Not enough?" Death asked. "Don't try to cheat for more time. 18 days is already an extension." My eyes lit up. "No need. One day will be enough." It wasn't even 4 a.m. when I woke Death up. "I need to go to school," I announced, slinging my backpack over my shoulder. He looked at me with sleepy confusion, then glanced at the still dark sky. "You don't have to eat bitter hardship on purpose. Why are you going to school this early?" I'd grown used to questioning, feeling no anger even when explaining. My voice was flat and tired. "School is far from home. They don't let me take the car." Death scoffed. "The Hart family is such a powerful clan. How could they not provide you with a car? Go ask them." I hesitated with my backpack, instinctively not wanting to bother the so-called family members. But then I thought, I'm going to die anyway. What if they suddenly have a change of heart and love me for once? I knocked on my parents' bedroom door and called out softly, "Dad? Mom?" Thomas and Margaret Hart opened the door in a panic, but when they saw it was me standing there, Mom screamed and cursed. "What do you want? Can't you stop causing trouble? Waking us up this early?" Slammed the door shut right in front of my nose. Death muttered beside me, "What kind of parents are these? They don't even care about their own child." But I said nothing. My heart had gone numb long ago, and I was already walking out of the house. Death caught up with me, chattering in my ear. "That counts as one, right? But why aren't you eating breakfast before school?" I glanced at him coldly. There's no such thing as free breakfast in this world. I walked through the night until dawn broke, and even Death was tired, though we still hadn't reached school. Instead, we arrived at the most luxurious mall in the commercial district. Death questioned me, "You're a student, you should be in school studying. What are you doing at a mall? This is just frittering your life away." I was used to not explaining myself to people. I went straight into the mall and headed for the restrooms, where I began cleaning every single one in the entire building. All 10 floors, both men's and women's restrooms, I cleaned them all with the practiced efficiency of a janitor who'd been doing this for over a decade. Death watched in stunned silence as I finally received $10 from a slime-looking manager. He exploded. "What the hell? This isn't just child labor. The pay doesn't even compare to slave wages. $10 split into 10 singles, and they're missing basic human decency. How do people like this still have the right to live?" I walked away, carefully distributing those 10 $1 bills into different pockets of my clothes, even stuffing 2 bills into my shoes. Death continued his angry muttering. That should count as another one. What kind of person is that? I looked up, my eyes brightening slightly. Don't curse him. He's a good person. Death beat his chest in frustration. How could he possibly be a good person? Eat something decent for once. I stubbornly shook my head. Don't talk about him like that. He's a good person. I quickened my pace as I spoke. Death followed helplessly. Fine, fine. You say he's good, so he's good. But what was with that careful hiding of 10 measly dollars? You stuffed them away like they were precious treasures. It's not like anyone's going to rob you. Before he could finish, we heard sinister laughter from the street corner. Hey, hey! This mountain belongs to us. These trees belong to us. If you want to pass, pay the toll. Of course, even if you pay up, we're still going to beat you up. Death's jaw dropped as he saw several delinquent middle schoolers blocking the intersection. Without a word, they rushed at me, grabbing my hair and beating me while searching every pocket on my body. 10 minutes later, I had some bruises on my face, and 8 of my 10 hidden bills were gone. Only the 2 in my shoes remained undiscovered. I got up expressionlessly, dusted off my backpack, and continued walking forward as if being robbed and beaten was just another ordinary part of daily life. Death couldn't take it anymore. Are you a weakling? You're a middle schooler, can't you fight off a few other middle schoolers? His voice grew weaker as he spoke, realizing that due to chronic malnutrition, I was barely 5 feet tall. Even elementary school kids could probably beat me up. He quickly changed his tune. Even if you can't fight back, couldn't you call the police? You're not legally illiterate, are you? I looked at him with emotionless eyes that made Death flinch. I tried. It didn't work, I explained simply. Death's shoulders sagged as if all his strength had left him. Of course, what good would calling the police do? They're just middle schoolers. My injuries aren't severe, and they stole less than $10 total. This isn't something the police would handle. This should be something those kids' parents deal with. That's another incident for your count, Death said. But that's only 3 so far. Don't get too excited. What other dangers await you at school? Death spoke with false confidence, but deep down, he had a sinking feeling that he was going to lose this bet. At the school gate, I bought 2 large steamed buns for $2 from the smallest, shabbiest breakfast stall. Under the murderous glare of the shop owner's wife, I insisted on taking 3 scoops of chili sauce in a plastic bag, then sprinted toward the school entrance. As I ran, I devoured most of the first bun in just a few bites, dipping it in the chili sauce. Death jogged beside me, urgently advising, "Look at you, eating like you're starving." Slow down, it's not like anyone's going to fight you for those buns. Just as I finished the first bun and before I could enter the school gates, a luxurious black Maybach cut me off at the entrance. Death was momentarily confused, but I didn't hesitate. I frantically stuffed the remaining bun into my mouth, though I only managed to eat about half. Sabrina Hart stepped out of the car wearing an exquisite little dress, her voice sickeningly sweet. Sister is so kind-hearted, bringing steamed buns to feed the stray cats every day. Let's do it together. I swallowed the last bite of bun and mechanically walked to a spot about 15 feet away from Sabrina. Death roared in my ear. That's your hard-earned breakfast money from scrubbing toilets. You had 10 buns worth, 8 got stolen, and now you want to give half of what's left to feed cats? What kind of saint complex is this? I sighed helplessly and forced a bitter smile that made Death pause. This is my breakfast, not. Before I could finish, a slap landed across my face, instantly swelling into a red handprint. Jason Hart, my third brother, was furious. Being able to feed cats with Sabrina is an honor. How dare you refuse? Acting pitiful with a steamed bun, your thoughts are disgusting. You're not even half as kind as Sabrina. My Hellfitten bun was knocked to the ground, covered in dirt. As I bent to pick it up, a small high heel stepped on the back of my hand. I groaned in pain but didn't scream, just turned pale while gripping the dirty bun tightly. When Sabrina finally lifted her foot, there was a deep puncture wound in my hand, blood flowing steadily. Sabrina feigned surprise, offering a fake apology. "Oh my! I'm so sorry, sister. I didn't see your hand. Why was it under my foot?" Ignoring them, I carefully peeled away the outer layer of the now crushed bun and put the rest in my mouth. But Jason suddenly grabbed my hair and shouted, "What's your attitude today? How dare you give Sabrina the cold shoulder? Since you like eating so much, eat your fill." He shoved my head into a nearby flower bed. I kept my mouth and eyes tightly shut, not resisting. The soil was sticky, and thick being pressed into dirt felt even more suffocating than being held under water. When he finally released me in satisfaction, I sat up, my face covered in foul-smelling mud mixed with the stench from cleaning toilets that morning. The smell was absolutely revolting. Meow, a small cat's cry came from nearby. A little white cat pushed a meat bun that Sabrina had thrown toward me. For once, I managed a genuine smile, reaching out to pet its back. "Here, you eat it." I stood up, shouldered my backpack, and continued toward the school. Death had fallen silent, only offering comfort along the way. "It's okay. You and Sabrina and Jason aren't in the same class. You'll be fine in your classroom. That incident counts as 3 more, he said, then stopped himself. You only have 12 left to go. He cut himself off, realizing that unconsciously, he wanted me to win, but he also didn't want me to face more pain. I was late, so the teacher wouldn't let me into the classroom. I stood outside, taking out my textbooks and reading by myself. When the teacher came out and saw me studying, he was absolutely livid. "Evelyn Graves, what's your attitude? I told you to stand here as punishment, but you're reading instead. If you wanted to study properly, why didn't you come earlier? You show up late and then put on this act. First, your learning attitude is completely wrong. Second, and more seriously, you have absolutely no respect for your teacher." I listened to his verbal abuse as usual. He was always like this, and I'd grown accustomed to it. Just endure it, and it will pass. But suddenly, warm hands covered my ears. I looked up in surprise to see Death standing in front of me, his hands glowing as they blocked my hearing. Not listening, turtle chanting scriptures," he muttered. I watched the teacher's mouth moving like a machine gun, but I couldn't hear a single word. For the first time in my life, I found the world somewhat amusing. The teacher let out an angry roar. "Evelyn Graves! Have you no shame? Not only are you late something so embarrassing, but you're actually laughing about it. Do you have any respect for me as your teacher? Get to the principal's office." On the way to the principal's office, Death muttered consolingly, "It's okay. I'll count that as 2 incidents for you. Only 10 more to go." Seeing his excited expression, I managed a faint smile and said softly, "Thank you." Death's cheeks flushed red as he stammered, "No need to thank me." When I pushed open the office door, the balding, middle-aged principal quickly invited me in, had me sit in a chair, and fussed over me, even making me tea. Death nodded approvingly. Finally, someone normal. He didn't notice how my body grew increasingly tense, instinctively pulling away from this overly attentive man. Suddenly, the principal pinched his nose and said, "Evelyn, you smell terrible. Come on, let me take you to the washroom to clean up." He forcibly pulled me up, his strength impossible to resist as he dragged me toward the washroom. Death immediately became alert, screaming, "What's he doing? What's he doing?" I was pulled into the washroom, where the principal's greasy hands seemed to brush against my skin. "You'll need to undress to shower properly. Don't worry, there are no cameras in the washroom. Let me help you undress." My body went rigid, almost unable to move, my eyes vacant and unfocused as I let the principal's hands manipulate my body. I heard Death screaming desperately in my ear, "Run, Evelyn. Run. Run." I suddenly snapped back to consciousness, dodging the principal's hands that had already begun reaching into my clothes. I grabbed the water hose and sprayed him with it, then turned it on myself, frantically scrubbing the places he had touched. But those hands hadn't just touched my skin, it felt like they had touched something inside me, inside my bones. No matter how hard I scrubbed, I couldn't get clean. That stench, accumulated over years, had grown into my body and become part of me. My face was struck hard, and I fell to the ground, my head hitting the sharp corner of the sink. Blood immediately appeared. The principal was soaked through by the ice-cold water more than this pampered, middle-aged man could bear. "You little bitch! How dare you spray me? You're asking for death." He was about to kick me again when I weakly spoke up. "Sir, class is about to end. You wouldn't want others to see you alone with a female student in the washroom, would you?" He ultimately didn't follow through with the kick, just cursed under his breath and dragged his corpulent body back to the office to change clothes. "Evelyn, are you okay? Evelyn!" Death circled around me tirelessly. I actually felt somewhat happy, slowly supporting myself to stand, and smiled. "I'm fine." Death's eyes reddened. He mumbled, "That counts as 3 more incidents. You only have 7 left. It'll be over soon." Then he felt his words were inappropriate, as if he were hoping for my misfortune. When the bell rang, I returned to my classroom like a walking corpse, only to find my desk covered in graffiti and filled with profanity, like idiot, bitch, and whore. I sat down as usual. Death muttered beside me, "That's another one." My desk drawer was stuffed with paper balls, garbage, and even the rotting corpse of a dead rat. I cleaned it all out with an unchanged expression. Death continued his commentary. "That definitely counts as another one." The student behind me scribbled on my uniform, while the one in front pointed at my nose and cursed. "You're just a bastard child. Stop acting so high and mighty. Do you think you're even 1/10,000th as good as Goddess Sabrina?" Death paused for a moment, then muttered, "That's 3 incidents." I asked in surprise, "Isn't that just 2? Death replied righteously, "You're not a bastard. Child Sabrina is the fake heiress. Your parents' failure to address these rumors is also harm against you." I laughed more brightly than before. So this is what it feels like when someone who cares about you notices the details of your grievances. I never imagined the first person to care about me would be a ghost. Death didn't have time to worry about whether my laughter was bright or not. He watched our surroundings eagerly, ready to add another mark at any sign of trouble. I heard him whisper, "Come on! Just 2 more." Just then, a figure appeared at the door. Jason Hart. Death immediately tensed up at the sight of him, putting up his fists. Oh great, here comes the tough guy. Come at me, and I'll give you a leg sweep followed by a boxing combo. I smiled as I watched Death shadowboxing in front of Jason. He's kind of cute. Jason rushed over, grabbed my hand, and dragged me out of the classroom all the way to the sports field. He demanded, "Don't you know today is Sabrina's 800-meter run? Why didn't you come to donate blood for her? If she gets low blood sugar while running, can you take responsibility?" Death was grinding his teeth beside me, whispering in my ear, "It's okay. Let them draw your blood first. I'll count this as 2 more incidents. After the blood draw, slap them senseless." Warmth spread through my heart as I heard the concern in Death's voice. Something seemed to be sprouting inside me, itchy and hopeful. I extended my arm almost without resistance as the doctor approached with blood drawing equipment. A cold voice interrupted first. "What's the maximum amount you can draw?" The doctor answered hesitantly. "Master Alexander, the maximum safe amount is 800 milliliters." Death's heart sank with a bad premonition. Alexander Langford was my fiancé. Well, not really. He was actually Sabrina's fiancé. His expression was dark, his voice ice-cold. "Draw 1,000 milliliters. I want to give Sabrina the best guarantee." His sharp gaze fixed on me, hatred clear in his voice. "This is what she owes Sabrina." The doctor looked troubled but hadn't spoken yet when Death beside me finally exploded. "Count it as 2, count it as 3, count it as 100. Enough. Draw, screw that. Evelyn. Avada Kedavra, kill all these idiots." Infected by his emotion, I felt an unusual surge of passion as Death's semi-transparent spirit suddenly merged with my body. The next second, I felt my body fill with incredible power, primal, surging force that flowed from my core to my limbs and finally concentrated in my hands. The doctor frowned, looking troubled as he addressed Alexander. "Master, 1,000 milliliters could be life-threatening." Alexander replied dismissively, "Just draw it when I tell you to. Where do you get off with all this talk? Her life is worthless anyway." Slap. My palm landed across Alexander's detestable face with such force that his 6-foot frame spun twice in place before falling to the ground, his right cheek swelling high. The atmosphere fell into brief silence, then erupted in a shriek. Sabrina lunged at me with claws extended, screaming, "Hey! How dare you hurt Brother Alexander?" Before she could reach me, I moved forward instead, grabbing both her wrists. "What do you mean your Brother Alexander?" "Have some shame, Sabrina Hart. A fake who's been playing house for over 10 years? Are you really that addicted to the act? Don't worry, you're the one who most deserves to be hit." Under Sabrina's horrified gaze, I raised my hand and slapped her left and right. She was sent flying 30 feet before she could even resist. Surprisingly, she turned out to be tougher than Alexander after being slapped away. She struggled to her feet and hid behind Jason, crying. "Wah, Jason. This bitch hit me." Sabrina covered her face, blinking her eyes flirtatiously as she whined to Jason, probably thinking she looked adorable. But all Jason could see was a pig-faced girl covering her swollen features while winking at him. For the first time, he thought, maybe I'd be better off without this sister, and the feeling only grew stronger. The surrounding students whispered among themselves, so Sabrina was the fake heiress all along? Then why has she been acting like such a princess, strutting around class like she's some Qing dynasty royal? Wait, so Evelyn isn't the bastard child? Really? Haven't you noticed all the Hart family members are pretty good-looking? But Sabrina looks Well, it's hard to describe. Wow, Evelyn is so cool. That slap just made my heart race. She's so much better than that fake Sabrina. Hearing others praise me drove Sabrina nearly insane. With her pig-like swollen face, she screamed at those classmates, "You're all commoners." So what if she's pretty? So what if she gets good grades? You're not even worthy of licking my shoes. You could work yourselves to death for 10 lifetimes and still not afford the watch on my wrist. You're all poor, trash just getting to see me is an honor you could never earn in your lifetimes. Silence fell again. Sabrina let out a satisfied breath, only then realizing that everyone around her was staring in shock, especially Jason and Alexander. Jason stammered, "Sabrina, how can you be so vicious?" He couldn't understand how his gentle, lovable, kind, and caring sister had become like this. Could it be true what Evelyn always said, that Sabrina has been bullying her all along? Alexander's face was half swollen like a pig's head, and in that instant, he suddenly found Sabrina completely unappealing. Evelyn is right, she's just a fake who stole someone else's place. My real fiancé should be Evelyn. Seeing the disappointment in her brother's and fiancé's eyes, Sabrina finally realized that her carefully maintained image as a pitiful innocent had completely crumbled. It's not like that. Alexander, Jason, I was influenced by this bitch. She dared to hit me, which clearly shows she has no respect for the Hart family. But Jason's expression showed no favoritism, only disappointed head shaking. He turned to me, his tone unusually negotiating. "Evelyn, even if Sabrina did something wrong, hitting her directly like that is too much. It's against the rules." I sneered, "You need to be hit too." This slap to Jason rang even louder than Alexander's. He not only spun 3.5 times, but flew 15 feet away, lying on the ground with rolled-back eyes, unable to even crawl up. Death cheered beside me. Yeah. Awesome. These rotten people deserve to be slapped 18 times. From the distance, a corpulent figure waddled over someone had called my homeroom teacher. He twisted his greasy body over to me, pointing at my nose and cursing, "Evelyn Graves! What trouble are you causing now?" "I'm representing the school and announcing that you're expelled." A bastard child born from some mistress, just a piece of trash that's been used by thousands. P2E. He was about to spit in my face, but I wouldn't give him the chance. Quick as lightning, I grabbed his greasy sausage-like mouth, forcing him to swallow his own spit. I swung my arm and slapped his oily face. Unfortunately, his weight was too much for him to fly, but blood immediately flowed from his mouth. Something hard rattled around inside before he spat out 2 bloody teeth. Now there was complete silence. In the face of absolute power, all arrogance seemed laughable. "Classmate, could you help me call the police?" I asked. The girl I addressed nervously pulled out her phone, then hesitated. "Are you turning yourself in?" I smiled and shook my head, dialing the number myself. "Hello. I'd like to report that Elite Academy has a teacher sexually harassing students." Yes, the evidence is all in his phone's photo gallery. The fat pig on the ground heard my police report and struggled to get up. I stepped on his spine, grabbed his hair, and slapped him again. This time, he finally lost all ability to move. No one expected a homeroom teacher to be so brazen as to keep videos of assaulting students openly in his phone. He knew we were used to being bullied, that even when abused, we lacked the courage and ability to fight back, let alone call the police. I handed both the pig's phone and the girl's phone to her. "When the police come, show them the photo gallery." Leaving the crowd on the sports field, I returned to the classroom. Death danced around me excitedly. That pervert should have been arrested long ago. That kind of scum deserves to be shot 1,000 times. Evelyn, I had no idea you were so tough. I turned my head to look at him. With someone backing me up, if I still don't fight for myself, then I deserve to live miserably. Death's voice began choking up as he spoke through tears. Evelyn, I'll back you up for life. I nodded. With only 3 days left in my life, Death might actually be able to keep that promise. As I pushed open the classroom door, I sensed something foul-smelling falling from above. Death shouted urgently, "Watch out! They're ambushing you!" I reacted quickly, swatting the object back into the classroom. Instantly, the room filled with the stench of urine. A bucket of yellow stinking piss had been perfectly positioned to douse the few students who'd been waiting gleefully by the door to watch my humiliation. Damn it, Evelyn! You're asking for death. The urine-soaked bullies, their eyes red with rage, raised their fists at me. Think you can dodge? We'll make you drink piss. One of them desperately grabbed an iron bucket containing the remaining yellow liquid, trying to grab my collar and force it down my throat. I hesitated for a moment. Their heads and faces were covered in stinking urine, and I found them disgusting to touch. Death shouted from the side, "Don't dirty your hands. Let me give you the shadowless kick." Instantly, incredible power surged through my legs. I pivoted and delivered a flying kick to the chin of the charging bully. I heard his neck crack as he lost his balance and fell backward, the remaining half bucket of urine pouring directly into his own mouth. I walked back to my seat expressionlessly, as if nothing had happened, only to discover that my uniform jacket had been torn to shreds by my back row classmate. I turned around and extended my hand, pay up. My desk mate looked incredulous. Why should I? Slap. He peacefully fell asleep, and I took $50 from his pencil case. A uniform costs $100. Since I've worn this one, and considering our classmate relationship, 50% off is already very generous. I sat down and opened my textbook. From 4 a.m. until nearly 11 a.m., I was finally able to study in peace. Death was still indignant on my behalf. Those who drew on your desk, put dead rats in your drawer, and called you a bastard child should all be slapped. But seeing my absorbed concentration while studying, he fell silent, not wanting to disturb this rare moment of tranquility. Today's peaceful time lasted unusually long. From morning until evening dismissal, no one dared bother me again. With the $50 from the uniform compensation, I experienced an unprecedented luxury at lunch: a cup of instant ramen from the convenience store downstairs. I sighed contentedly. Today is really extravagant. The hot steam carried the rich aroma of the noodles. In previous years, I could only smell it. I never imagined that one day, such a precious delicacy could actually enter my mouth. I finished every drop, not leaving even the broth. Death swallowed hard, watching me eat the instant ramen with such relish that he was actually getting hungry. Don't worry, Evelyn. From now on, you'll definitely be able to eat this every day. I nodded, not taking it to heart. I won't eat dinner tonight. I still need to buy needle and thread to mend my uniform. If I eat, I won't have enough money. But when I walked out the school gate, that morning's Maybach was still parked there. Sabrina's face had probably gone down a little, but she still looked like the village idiot with her red, swollen cheeks. She was throwing a tantrum in front of the car. Why? Why wait for her? What is she anyway? Didn't you say I was your only sister? That she should just die? Jason leaned against the car, his expression clearly impatient. Be reasonable, Sabrina. Evelyn is also a Hart family member. Besides, you're not really part of the Hart family. Sabrina froze. She hated me most of all because my existence constantly reminded her of the painful fact that she wasn't the Hart family's biological daughter. But she never expected such words directly stabbing at her deepest wound to come from her most beloved third brother. When Sabrina saw me approaching the car, she went completely insane, reaching out to strangle my neck. Bitch? Bitch? Why don't you just die out there? Your life is already miserable enough. Why do you have to come and ruin mine? I sneered and prepared to slap her, but surprisingly, I didn't need to lift a finger. Jason angrily grabbed her wrist and slapped her himself. How dare you speak like that about our Hart family bloodline? You don't even know which bastard gave birth to you. Sabrina stared at Jason in disbelief, shrieking like a banshee. You're actually taking Evelyn's side? You actually. Before she could finish, Jason had already pulled me into the car, and the Maybach sped away. Throughout the ride, Jason kept trying to make conversation. Evelyn, has Sabrina been bullying you? Why didn't you tell us, brothers? Actually, I never meant to favor Sabrina. I'm just used to it. You should also reflect on your own problems. Why do we all like Sabrina and not you? Don't you have any faults? I turned my head, expressionless. You're too noisy. Slap. Jason's head slammed against the car window. The force should be enough to keep him asleep for the rest of the ride. When we entered the house, Sabrina had somehow gotten home before us. She was crying in Margaret Hart's arms, sobbing dramatically. Thomas Hart and my eldest brothers, Victor and Damien Hart, sat on the sofa with cold expressions. Seeing Jason and me enter, Victor scolded, "Jason, what's wrong with you?" Sabrina was hurt by this little bitch, and you actually left her there and brought this little bitch home instead. Has your brain been flooded? Damien played with a butterfly knife, his voice menacing. Little bastard, you hurt the wrong person. You must pay the price. Thomas spoke sternly. Your heart is so vicious, actually daring to hurt Sabrina and bewitch your third brother. The Hart family has no place for a child like you. Margaret held Sabrina, sobbing. I only have one daughter, Sabrina. No one can take away her place in my heart. Jason stood behind me, wanting to speak but unable to find words. He felt that what his parents and brothers were saying was wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to say anything that would hurt Sabrina. I laughed coldly, flexing my wrists, and said softly, You all need to be hit. I rushed toward the nearest target, Damien first, snatching the butterfly knife from his hands and slapping him left and right. Damien discovered in horror that under my slaps, all his strength was draining away, and even his hands and feet were paralyzed by pain. Hurt someone I shouldn't hurt? Playing with a little knife, trying to act tough. I didn't just hit Sabrina. I'm going to hit your dad, your mom, and you. I slapped him over a dozen times in succession. Damien had no chance to resist, his face swelling like two steamed buns, spitting blood before collapsing on the sofa, unable to move. While everyone else was still in shock, I pressed my advantage, grabbing Victor by the collar and unleashing a flurry of slaps that made his eyeballs bulge halfway out of their sockets. Calling me a little bitch? Are you an idiot? We have the same blood running through our veins. If I'm a little bitch, then you're a big bastard. Stop putting on airs in front of me, fake, low class. You're not even worth being called an animal. Victor ended up just like Damien. Eyes rolled back, collapsed on the sofa. Thomas and Margaret finally snapped back to reality. Margaret quickly released Sabrina and screamed while retreating behind her husband. She's insane. She's a psycho. Someone come. Someone drag her out and beat her to death. Thomas, being a head taller than me, still had some confidence as he pointed at my nose and cursed, "You want to hit your parents too? Then you're unfilial, disloyal, heartless, and unrighteous urine animal." I stepped on Sabrina's back as I walked over, nearly making her vomit blood from the pressure. In a few steps, I reached the two old fools and gave Thomas a shadowless kick. "Screw you. Touch your conscience and see if you have any honor or loyalty. Calling your own biological daughter an animal, then you two are old animals." I used full force with that kick. Thomas immediately spat out blood and went flying. Margaret, hiding behind him, was also knocked into the wall by her husband's momentum. I grabbed both old fools by their hair and gave each a slap, feeling as if the resentment that had been suppressed for over 10 years was finally being swept away today. I let out a satisfied breath, unconsciously smiling. At that moment, Damien, who had been the first to get beaten, was weakly shouting into his phone, "Security. Guards. Are you all dead? Hurry up and catch this little bitch, Evelyn." Instantly, more than a dozen bodyguards burst through the door. The Hart family was a major clan with a security team of over 100 people. If I had to slap each one individually, even if I could win, my hand would be swollen from all the slapping. I didn't linger on the battlefield. Instead, using Avada Kedavra and the shadowless kick, I carved a bloody path through the bodyguards and ran out of the Hart family estate. "Don't chase her." Jason, who had been silent for so long, finally spoke up. He turned around, pleading earnestly, "Mom, Dad, brothers, please, wake up." Evelyn has always been so submissive, but today, she went completely crazy. Doesn't that mean she's been pushed to the absolute limit? Victor, Damien, Thomas, and Margaret were still reeling from the pain of being beaten, unable to respond. But Jason's words did make them think. Evelyn today really was completely different from usual. Suddenly, Sabrina's maniacal screaming filled the room. "She's a bitch." Jason has already been bewitched by her. Victor, Damien, Mom, Dad, you're not going to be bewitched by her too, are you? Sabrina looked desperately at her family members' contemplative expressions. She had a premonition that perhaps today, everything she had stolen over the years would have to be returned. She finally broke down completely. I should have had them strangle her to death earlier. Why did she have to come back? Why did she have to steal my happy life? Why didn't she just die out there? Victor stared in shock. "What did you say, Sabrina?" "You knew all along that Evelyn was the Hart family's biological daughter?" Sabrina let out a sinister laugh. "Of course I knew. I found out when I was 5 years old. Those two working-class fools even wanted me to send them money every month, or they'd expose me. How could I possibly be controlled by them? Within a few days, they died in a car accident. I just didn't expect they'd leave behind a piece of trash like Evelyn, and that she'd actually come back now. I'm going to kill her." Everyone stared at Sabrina's twisted face in horror. Thomas and Margaret shook their heads in disappointment. "I'm truly disappointed in you. You stole Evelyn's happiness for so many years without feeling any guilt, and now you actually want to kill her. You're simply a demon." Victor and Damien also gritted their teeth. Someone as vicious as you doesn't deserve to stay in the Hart family. "Guards, throw her out. Send her back where she came from." The bodyguards grabbed Sabrina's limbs, and she continued struggling like a demon. Why? Why? This was supposed to be my life. It's Evelyn who's trying to steal from me. If it wasn't meant to be mine, why was I given it in the first place? Sabrina's screaming grew fainter and fainter as the room fell into silence. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Alexander Langford entered, carrying a thick stack of documents, his eyes red as if he'd been crying. Uncle Thomas, Aunt Margaret, this is information about Evelyn's life over these years. I've investigated everything. Please take a look. Jason immediately snatched the documents, while Thomas, Margaret, Victor, and Damien all crowded around. After reading just the first line, everyone gasped in shock. Why would she get up in the middle of the night to go to school? Didn't you provide her with a car? I didn't know she didn't have transportation, Jason said with red eyes. Sabrina told her not to ride in the car with us, but I really didn't think she'd walk there. I thought she. He couldn't continue. Without money, what else could she use for transportation besides her own 2 legs? Thomas asked incredulously, how could she not even have taxi money? I told you to give her $100,000 every month. Damien lowered his eyes. Sabrina said Evelyn was spending money recklessly every day, so I didn't give her any. Margaret immediately slapped Damien's back, crying, "You fool! How could you not give her anything at all? What was she supposed to eat and drink?" Victor's eyes reddened as he continued reading, his veins bulging. A beast in human clothing. How dare he molest students? I'll make him lose everything. Alexander said flatly from the side, no need. She already called the police herself. That teacher has been arrested. Victor slumped onto the sofa dejectedly, mumbling. When something like that happened, why didn't she tell the family? We definitely would have stood up for her. Margaret was in tears, suddenly remembering Evelyn did hint at this issue to me once. I didn't take it seriously at the time, and I even said, how could anyone target her specifically, and told her to reflect on whether she was deliberately seducing men outside. The atmosphere fell into deathly silence. Everyone's minds were replaying the grievances I had suffered over the years. What seemed like catastrophic disasters for a young girl were just ordinary daily experiences for me. Jason wiped his tears and stood up, his voice determined. We must compensate Evelyn. I want to spend the rest of my time making amends. Alexander shook his head and sighed, pulling out a medical diagnosis. It read, late-stage stomach cancer, with my name on it. It's too late. He held up the diagnosis. This is from the school's last physical exam. Because Evelyn couldn't afford the fees, the results were held at the hospital. The moment Margaret saw the diagnosis, she broke down completely, wailing and beating her chest. Evelyn! My Evelyn! It's Mommy who failed you! The remaining 3 Hart men all had tears in their eyes. No one could remain calm faced with something like this. Thomas stood up and instructed his 3 sons, find your sister. At least in her final days, we family members need to compensate her as much as possible. After she's gone, we'll build her the finest headstone as our atonement. The Hart sons nodded, and under cover of night, all the Hart family members and bodyguards searched for me. Meanwhile, Death and I lay on a small hillside, looking up at the bright stars. Death, I was very happy today. I don't want to live the remaining 2 days. Can you take me now? Death's eyes also grew moist as he looked at me, unable to speak. I laughed purely and beautifully. Do ghosts cry too? He didn't answer the question, just said with a choked voice, okay. I'll take you. Epilogue New Beginnings. The next morning, the Hart family found my body on the hillside. The day after that, the Hart family held a grand funeral for me. But halfway through the ceremony, a mad woman burst in with gasoline and set the entire funeral ablaze. Everyone in the Hart family, except Jason, who suffered severe burns but survived, perished in the flames. They said the female arsonist was Sabrina Hart, seeking revenge, though her body was too charred to identify. On the fourth morning, at dawn's first light, a baby's clear cry rang out in a hospital room. Mom held me in her arms, kissing me gently. Dad carefully squeezed my tiny hand. Grandma placed a golden ingot by my pillow. Death looked at the harmonious family in the delivery room and sniffled. "Damn it, Evelyn. Do you know how much effort it took me to get you a ticket for a wealthy reincarnation? I said I'd back you up for life this life and the next. I'll support you forever." The end.